Welcome and good morning to all of you. I, Ankita Basti, Research Scholar in GLA University, Mathura, is moderator of today's session. I would like to welcome our first speaker of the session, Dr. Kuldeep Kumar Saxena. Dr. Kuldeep Kumar Saxena is presently serving as an Associate Professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering of Institute of Engineering and Technology at GLA University, Mathura. He has 10 years of teaching and research experience. He has done his doctoral degree from IIT Roorkee and Masters of Technology from MNNIT Allahabad. He has served as a Senior Research Fellow SRF for 2 years and 8 months on the project sponsored by the Board of Research in Nuclear Sciences, a research unit of Bhabha Atomic Research Center, Tromboi, Mumbai. He availed international travel support DST served Government of India to attend an international conference held at University of Tokyo, Japan. He was a guest editor on Elsewhere platform associated with the Materials Today proceeding. He has published 41 plus international SCI Scopus Index Journal and 4 edited book chapter IGI Global Publication House. The H index of the H index of Dr. Saxena Google Scholar is 8 and where I10 index is 6. He established the Indian Institute of Metals chapter Mathura and serving as a secretary of the chapter. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Ankita, for this nice words. So, welcome you all again in this last day of this FDP, International FDP. And today I am going to talk little about this physical simulation. So, Ankita, please, fine. So, those who have the talk of Dr. Manish Krishna from BRC, Dr. Van from Global DSI system, they will be much comfortable to understand my talk because some input of the talk is the role of physical simulation and the material modeling in the material forming. So as we all are familiar, I think my voice, Ankita, my voice is clear with all?
Yes, sir, your voice is audible.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, so the title of the talk is Role of Physical Simulation and Material Modeling in Material Forming. Okay, so we know well that forming is very important in the case of material science as well as in the case of manufacturing. So we start just by 3 terms. The first one is why physical simulation, what we get from the physical simulation, and what is possible after physical simulation. So these 3 are the main content of this today's talk. Okay, so first of all, I am trying to convey you the information regarding why physical simulation is important and what exactly is physical simulation. Because we all are aware with that FEM simulation and other kind of the simulation, but few of us are familiar with the term that is called physical simulation. So what is the need of the physical simulation? So here on the left side, we can see that there is a picture which shows a forging kind of experiment at a shop floor. There is a very huge power press kind of thing, and that is providing a large force on a very hot red kind of the billet. Okay, so we know generally that this forging is used to break out the this S-cast structure of the material to make it a very fine structure or in aqueous form. Because when we break this dendrite structure which we form in the case of the casting, so to enhance the mechanical property of the product, we normally go through the forging which break out this dendrite structure. So here in this picture, it is very much clear that there are few terms. One is the temperature of the billet, another is the what is the amount of the force, and what is the speed of the force which we are going to provide on this forging duration. Okay, now moving towards the extrusion. So again, extrusion is also a kind of metal forming process wherein we are again applying a force and passing our material through a certain die to change the dimension or to change the shape of a particular material. So here in this extrusion process, again our temperature is the main parameter, force is again a main parameter, and the way or the speed by which you are extruding a particular material which is known as the strain rate is also a kind of important parameter. Now moving towards the third one which is known as the rolling. All are familiar with the rolling as we are using rolling. A lot of research is going on the rolling, and in rolling we are always try to reduce the thickness of a particular plate or the material. Okay, so here with the help of this roller we can introduce force. So here with the help of these two rollers we introduce the force as well as the strain rate. Okay, the main role of this rolling kind of experiment is to convert the as-received microstructure into some new kind of microstructure to enhance the mechanical properties of the end product. The last one is the sheet metal working, because I am taking very limited examples of the sheet forming process. So among them, sheet metal working is there, where again we use some kind of the die, and that die uses kind of heavy force, and the speed of the strain, that is known as the strain rate. Okay, so these are the main parameters again in the case of the sheet metal working. So if we conclude these all pictures, so we can come to the conclusion that force is a common parameter. Force is highly required for any kind of the exercise. Then strain rate is the main parameter, temperature and the strain is another kind of parameter. So here it is well written. That strain rate and temperature are the main concern parameters when we are looking for the material forming process, because our motive of this material forming is to get the end product which must be the defect free with desired quality. So now the question is how we can get the end product which must be defect free with the desired quality or the desired properties. So when early age, or we can say around 30 or 40 years back, normally we are using at the industry level hit and trial kind of the approaches. Okay. Later on, when we come to this simulation kind of era, when we have a very good computer peripherals, then we come into the knowledge of FEM simulation. Later on, at the advanced level, or we can say from the last 10 years, we have this physical simulation kind of concept. So these concepts we are now used for this material forming process. The first one was hit and trial, which is now totally absolute. FEM simulation, it is going on very well, and the latest way is the physical simulation, which is very helpful to perform FEM simulation also, because without physical simulation no FEM simulation can be performed. Now we are going in detail, little detail in these all three in the coming slides. So first I am going to discuss about this hit and trial concept of the method for material forming. All are familiar, I hope, because hit and trial will definitely have a loss of time, wastage of material, loss of manpower, and huge loss of finally money. So nowadays it is totally absolute. Now later on, if we talk about the FEM simulation, so something are also there which drag it towards the back foot, which is known as lots of exemptions we have to consider, limited boundary conditions we can impose during the simulation or the modeling. Okay, and here we cannot consider when we are doing some FEM modeling or the simulation. So that kind of modeling and simulation cannot give you the exact feel which we have at the shop floor. Okay, so somehow we have to generate approximate results. Okay, and the main concern or main drawback with the FEM simulation is that if we have developed any new ally, then FEM simulation requires the material property. So how and why we can get the material property of a new ally which is recently developed, whose database is not available in the literature. So this is the main concern with the FEM simulation. Okay, so it means we must have the material properties for which we are going this FEM simulation. So this requirement of material property by FEM simulation is a kind of a drawback until unless we are not having the database of the concerned material properties. Okay, so now moving towards this physical simulation. So very appreciable kind of sentence we will use here, that it uses a very small workpiece. Very small workpiece in the sense, if we talk about the hot compression test, if we want to know what will happen when you will force a particular billet in a large size with the help of this much temperature and this much force, so that kind of activity we can do here under the physical simulation with the help of a very tiny sample that is a kind of 10 mm in diameter and 15 mm in height. Okay, so with the help of 10 mm diameter and 15 mm height, we can understand what will happen when you will force it at the shop floor with the big billet. Okay, so with the help of physical simulation, we can do that, and in that we require only very small teeny sample. It provides almost similar condition whatever you have at the shop floor when you are doing some forging. With the physical simulation, some versatile machines have very good facility to capture the real-time data, and with the help of that data, data can be used for further analysis. And among those analysis, one of the help is this data is also helpful to provide you the material property which can help you to run the FEM simulation. This data is what? So in the coming slides, we can understand what is there in the data which is provided just after the physical simulation of any compression sample. So I think it is clear that what is hit and trial FEM simulation and why physical simulation come into the picture and what is the significance of the physical simulation and how it supports to our FEM simulation. So little about physical simulation, because our starting is totally focused on the physical simulation, so we must know about the definition or the exact words related to the physical simulation. So physical simulation of the material processing involves the exact reproduction of the thermal and mechanical processes in the laboratory that the material is subjected into the actual fabrication or end use, as I have stated in the previous slide. Some benefits with the physical simulations are as follows: that physical simulation allow to study material behavior at conditions very close to industrial processing or application. Okay, so as I stated in the previous slide, that from the physical simulation we can capture lot of real-time data, so that data can be helpful for the further FEM simulation or other kind of computer simulation, so that we can say that it behaves just like a bridge in between computer simulation and industrial process. It deals with the real time and energy and aim to gain physical data of the process material. Material behavior data gained from the physical simulation experiment can be further used in computer modeling and control of the industrial manufacturing processes. So it is almost similar kind of statement as I stated in the previous that from this physical simulation we can get the material behavior data, and that material behavior data is now further used into the FEM simulation, and that FEM simulation can be able to predict the other processing condition, means what kind of force and what will be the amount of the force we must impose at the shop floor when we are going to force any billet. Okay, so this kind of advantage we can have just with the help of physical simulation. Thus, large variety of microstructures and associated mechanical properties can be obtained and studied in a short time and for a tiny fraction of full-scale industrial experiments. So, the one way of this physical simulation is the data. The other way or the other end of this physical simulation is the deformed sample which we obtain after the kind of compression test or any kind of the test which we are going to perform. So, with the process sample or with the deformed sample, we can do a rigorous microstructure analysis, and from that deformed sample, we can prepare a small tiny sample for other mechanical testings. So, we will have some details of mechanical properties and microstructure analysis after this hot compression test in the further slides. So finally, with the help of this physical simulation, we can have reduced in R&D cost and speed up implementation of new technologies. So now the next question is how physical simulation can perform, because we are appreciating just okay, this physical simulation can do this physical simulation can do that. But the question is how we can do the physical simulation. So I remember that Dr. Vane has told us a lot about this machine of physical simulation that is termed as a thermomechanical simulator, and the brand name is Global 3800. Okay, so I'm not doing marketing of this particular machine. I'm just telling you the versatile capacity of this particular machine. So here on the left side, you can see there are the three modules of this particular thermomechanical simulator. So here you can see this is developed by the Global System, which is known as the DSI company. So here one module is this, where the first window is open. Second module is this, and the third module is this. So here in the third module, it is clearly visible that it is a kind of torsion machine. And this second module is known as the Hydra Base. The specialty of Hydra Base that it acts or it can apply the force from both the ends at a heavy rate. Okay, so this is the capability of Hydra Base. But here in the Global System, where it is written is a Global System, it is generally or usually known as pocket jaw kind of unit of this Global System. Here in this, little lower force can be applied to deform or to do any kind of physical simulation. So, in the next slide, we can understand the expanded view of this working chamber. So, you can see on the right side picture where it is much clearer than the previous picture that how the working chamber looks like. So, here this is your working chamber. This is the lid of this working chamber where some jaws are there. Here on the right side, it is kind of fixed jaw, and from left side, it is a movable jaw which apply force during the hot compression test when it is required. And here you can see some copper units are there. So within this copper unit, our sample, this helps to hold our sample, whether it is for HLZ kind of sample or whether it is the uniaxial deformation sample or the hot compression you can see. So here a little view of very small view of console of unit console of this whole system. It is fully computerized and embedded with a lot of facilities using advanced software. So now another expanded view of this working chamber here. You can see left side and right side both the jaws are there. And then in between you can see sample which have the dimension of 10 mm in the dia and 15 mm into the height seems just like a red hot. and just above these two wires are going on. So these two wires are known as a thermocouple, which is already welded with the sample. Okay, it is a kind of a spot welding. Another unit of welding is there with the Gleeble system. So at the start of the sample, at start of the experiment, we usually weld these two thermocouple into the sample. Then we start our hot compression test. So with the help of these two thermocouples, we can capture the real-time temperature of the sample. So really, it's an appreciable kind of machine which has a versatile capacity of do the various kind of experiments. So more about this particular thermomechanical simulator is available on their website. So if you want to know more about this thermomechanical simulator or Gleeble 3800, you may feel free to visit DSI website. Now coming towards the next one, that what is the specification of this Gleeble 3800? So with the Gleeble 3800, we talk about the force. So maximum compressive force it can apply up to 20 metric tons. Maximum tensile force is also 20 metric tons. Maximum stroke distance is 125 mm. Minimum stroke rate is 10 to power minus 3 mm per second. Means if you want to compress a sample very slowly, so what will be the rate of that slow movement? So that slow movement is around 10 to power minus 3 mm per second. Means in 1 second it can compress only 10 to power minus 3 mm. This is the capacity of this particular equipment. So now about the temperature. So maximum temperature it can gain up to 3000 degrees centigrade, whereas it has the capacity to raise the temperature 10,000 degrees in a second. As well as the quenching rate, we can control here around 10,000 degrees centigrade per second. Sorry. Maximum specimen size is 20 mm in diameter. So this maximum specimen size for all kind of experiments. I'm not concising it for this hot compression test, because in hot compression test there is a standard that there must be a ratio of dia and height. If you are considering a dia is 1, then height must be in between 1.2 to 1.5. For example, if you are considering the dia is 10 mm, then height must be in between 12 mm to 15 mm. So this is the standard size recommended by the Gleeble system. So okay, now here in this list we can understand or we can know what kind of experiment can be performed with the help of this thermomechanical simulator. So a kind of process simulation, continuous casting, hot rolling, continuous strip annealing, forging, heat treatment, powder metallurgy, sintering, extrusion, weld HZ, offset bulb welding, diffusion bonding, and hot deformation. So I don't know about all other kind of experiments. I have knowledge of this hot deformation which is performed on this Gleeble 3800. So we'll consider all the experiments which is related to this hot deformation. We will explain in the further slides. So now talking about this hot compression, which is also known as uniaxial compression. Because if we talk about hot compression, so there is two kind of tests is there. One is known as the uniaxial compression and other one is known as the plane strain compression. Both are totally different, physically totally different, and will provide definitely different kind of the microstructure or other properties. Okay, so we are going to discuss this hot compression, or in other words you can say uniaxial compression test. Okay, so the first question is how Gleeble 3800 thermomechanical simulator will do. Another question is what simulator provides what information can be stored with the help of the simulator, and how this information will be useful for other applications. So in the case of the what simulator will provide, so simulator will provide two things. One is known as data, on which we have discussed in the previous slide, and in a further slide I am also showing what is there in the data, what information is there in the data. So along with the data, we will have process sample, or we can say it a deformed sample or a compressed sample after the simulation. So one thing is data, the other thing is the process sample or the deformed sample. Okay. So now if we look on the data, so here a table is written, table is shown here in the slide. So with the help of this table, I can tell you that lot of parameters can be captured while you are performing a hot compression test with the help of this thermomechanical simulator. Here you can see that this TC1 is thermocouple 1 temperature. This TC1 shows the thermocouple 1 temperature. It means what is the real time temperature of the sample when you are performing your experiment. And here in this particular column where it is written as P temperature it means program temperature. Means what temperature you have programmed and what exact information or what exact temperature is there in the real time of compression or with the sample. So with the help of these two, you can compare whether the temperature of the sample is according to your program or not. Okay. So here don't see whether it is equal, PT temperature is equal to TC1, because it is a very starting stage of this compression test. So till this position, test has not been started. It is an initial preparation time. So here you can, if you want to see that here in this column, in this row it is 21.707, but here it is 21.75. So it is a little bit different in the second point of the decimal. So don't bother about it, because it is an initial stage. Till then compression has not started. So there may be a kind of difference can exist. Okay. So here another column is the strain column, where you can have the data, have the information about the strain. How much strain, how much deformation, how much plastic deformation has been done with the jaws, with the force. And in the next column, you can understand what is the strain. Obviously, when you are applying some force, you are providing some strain. So then some stress will be there. So that data of stress can be captured here in this particular column. So stroke can also be captured. L gauge is also a kind of representation of strain in other terms. Force we can capture here, and we can capture here the time. Okay. Another advanced feature in particular have in this software, that is the frequency. Means in 1 second how much data you want to capture. If you want to capture 50,000 data in a second, so it is able to capture 50,000 data in a second. So now we have the data from the thermomechanical simulator. Now what we can do with the data? What kind of analysis we can perform with the help of the data? So here we can develop the processing map with the help of data which we obtain from the thermomechanical simulation. In the case, I'm fully pointed on the hot compression test, not other kind of experiment. So when you perform any kind of hot compression test, then you will have a kind of data in the terms of stress and strain, true stress and true strain, in the terms of temperature, strain rate, etc. So from that data we can develop the processing map. We can also develop the quantity equation. We can also get the microstructural characterization not from the data but from the deformed samples. Okay. So these are the things which we can obtain or we can perform after the physical simulation. Okay. So these first two terms are totally based on the data what we will get from this thermomechanical simulation, and the last which is known as the microstructural characterization, this we can do on the deformed sample which we obtain after the experiment. So now little bit about processing map, because somehow it is a new term who is not working, who are not working in this particular domain. So processing map is a kind of map or deformation map which helps you to understand what are those processing conditions. Processing condition means what will be the temperature and what will be the strain rate at which this material deformation will be safe. Now the question is, what is material deformation and what is the safe condition of the material deformation? Normally what we think that if we are doing any kind of forging test, so the microstructure must be very refined or must be recognized, must be under dynamic recovery, but there must not be any instability. Instability means there must not be a kind of void, flow localization. Okay, so these kind of flow localization or void we do not want to occur at the end of our operation if we are talking about the extrusion or the forging. Okay, so this particular processing map help us to understand that what are those conditions where our material will be safe and what are those conditions where our material will not be safe. And with the help of some power dissipation efficiency of this particular processing map, we can understand, okay, we are getting this much amount of power dissipation efficiency. It means it may possible that microstructure have the dynamic recrystallization or a kind of dynamic recovery. Okay, and where this processing map indicates us about the unsafe processing condition. So it means it is indicating us that in microstructure you might get the flow localization, adiabatic shear bend, or a kind of void formation. Okay, so this map is very much helpful for those industries where such kind of forging and extrusion is going on. And I'm happy to share that whatever analysis I'm going to share you in the next few minutes is literally using by this nuclear fuel complex Hyderabad, which is a unit of Department of Atomic Energy. So okay, so this processing map we can understand, okay, this is the processing map and this is the beauty of the processing map. But now the question is how we can develop the processing map. The question is how we can develop the processing map. In literature, three methods are there. One is developed by Professor Y.V.R.K. Prasad, who is the professor of this IIT Bangalore, India. And the name of this particular processing map they have named as dynamic material model. And later on, Professor Murthy, who is the scientist at ISRO Trivandrum, modified little bit in the existing model and named as modified dynamic material model. And the another one which is based on the strain hardening kind of the concept, which is developed by Jonas and Samantin, okay, is known as the alpha parameter. But usually if you search the hot deformation behavior of any kind of material, whether you are talking about the aluminum, magnesium, titanium, zirconium, you will find that DMM model is best suitable for any kind of deformation prediction. Okay, so I'm not going into the detail of all about these models, that is the dynamic material model, modified dynamic material model, or alpha parameter. I will tell you little about the dynamic material model which is developed by Y.V.R.K. Prasad et al. Okay, so what they assume, so initially they assume that the total force or the total power which you impose on the sample with the help of this thermomechanical simulator or any kind of the machine, because they didn't use this thermomechanical simulator at the early stage of their work. Okay, so what they assume that the total power which you have imposed on the sample is distributed in two parts. One is termed as G and another is termed as J. Okay. So one term which is known as the G is spent on the deformation of this sample when you are performing hot compression test. So this part of the power is spent on the deformation, and the J component is the microstructural change. Means a certain part of the total power consumed in the microstructural change. Means with the help of that power, that part of the power, your microstructure gets converted into the some another kind of the feature. Okay, so G plus J is nothing, is a combination of the both the unit or both the power, and that is equal to the total power provided by the machine on the equipment. So here some mathematics or some limits are there that it is 0, say 0 to this epsilon I is not nothing, it's a strain rate. Okay, whatever strain rate you are considering, that sigma is the flow stress. Okay, so in this term they have splitted the whole equation, and then finally they converted the microstructural change, that is the J, is a kind of this particular M is the strain rate sensitivity, and then sigma is the flow stress, and this is the strain rate. Okay, so in the simple form they have converted the whole equation and find what could be the J max. So they simplified the J max means maximum microstructural change or the maximum force which gets converted into the microstructural change is nothing. It's just like a strain rate multiplied by the flow stress divided by 2. Okay. So here I have written what is the M. M is the strain rate sensitivity, and it is nothing. It is just differentiation of this diver J upon diver G, and when we will simplify it, then it will be converted as a ln sigma upon differentiation of this ln sigma upon ln strain rate. So with the help of these all data, we can easily calculate the strain rate sensitivity. With the help of strain rate sensitivity, we can also take some idea about the behavior of the materials. Okay, so now how we can calculate the power dissipation efficiency, which helps to identify, okay, whether there will be a DRX or there will be a DRV. DRX, the full form of the DRX, all are almost familiar, but still I am telling you the DRX is dynamic recrystallization, and DRV is a dynamic recovery in the microstructure. And how we can get the instability? So for instability, they have developed this particular equation and assume that the value of this particular term must be 0. Okay. So with the help of this efficiency and instability value, one can develop the power dissipation efficiency. One can develop this processing map to get the safe domain and unsafe domain, and to know what could be the maximum efficiency. Okay, here on the right side you are seeing a single picture, but in fact it is not a single picture. It is a picture of superimposition of two particular maps. One map was power dissipation map and other one map was an instability map. The power dissipation map is a kind of contour map. Here you can see contours are there with some numeral values on the axis of temperature and log strain rate. So this contour map is known as the power dissipation map, and this shaded domain map, a map or a box which has only the shaded domain, is known as instability domain, instability map on the same axis, that is a kind of temperature as well as strain rate. When we superimpose both the maps on each other, then only we will have the processing map. The superimposition of both the maps, that is power dissipation map as well as instability map, will give you the processing map. Okay, so when you have complete your processing map, so with the help of this domain you can understand, okay, here it is 0.42, it means 42% power dissipation efficiency is, it means it is the maximum efficiency. So here it is a maximum deficiency. It means we can assume or the processing map predicts us that this is the domain where DRX can be possible. DRX in the microstructure can be possible of the deformed sample. It means here if you see closely, so the temperature is around 730 degrees centigrade up to 810 degrees centigrade. Means within the range of 730 to 810, there may be possibility of DRS in the deformed microstructure. And if you see the what could be the strain rate, so here this is the range of strain rate wherein you can get the DRS, or you are having this particular higher power depreciation efficiency. Okay. So with the help of these two processing conditions, you can understand, okay, if at the soft floor the deform are delayed within the range of 730 to 810 with the speed of 10 to power minus 2, with the strain rate of 10 to power minus 2 or little higher, we can get a very good DRX kind of microstructure at the end of our product. So this is the beauty of this particular processing map. Here further you can see that this domain is also covered with the shaded domain. Shaded domain is a kind of instability in the processing map. So same time we can understand that somehow this particular processing condition is also covered with the help with the instability. So somehow you may get some kind of instability feature at the end product also. Okay, so we have to be very careful because it is, I don't know for what material this particular processing map is. Okay, so that's why such kind of features are available here. So at the same condition you are getting DRX, but somehow this processing map also tells that at the same condition you will find some features of instability also. Okay, so this kind of processing map will be helpful to predict similar things in any kind of material. Okay. So little information about the quantification, which is another kind of approach which is developed with the help of the data obtained from thermomechanical simulator. Okay. So from the thermomechanical simulator, if we are compressing a particular material or we are doing the hot deformation, so normally we have the temperature, we have the strain rate, we have the stress, we have the strain rate. Okay, we have the stress and we have the strain. Okay, so with these all data, we can develop an equation which is known as the Constantine equation. Constantine equation is a kind of Arrhenius type equation wherein Zeller-Halloman parameter, that is known as a Z, which combines or which bind up this strain rate and temperature in a single parameter, that is Z. Okay, so here we can see the equation that Z is nothing, it's just equal to the strain rate exponential of Q by RT. And further, if we simplify this particular equation, so we can write this is strain rate is equal to some constant function of flow stress and then exponent of minus Q by RT. Okay, so here we can split this particular quantity equation into three terms. So one is known as exponential kind of strain rate, exponential kind of, and this is known as sine hyperbola, or somehow it is also known as universal kind of quantity equation. Okay, so now question is, if we have split it or we have classified three kind of quantity equations, so what is the use of these all three kind of quantity equations? So here I would like to tell you this kind of quantity equation is useful when you have a very low stress of flow, very low flow stress. Whereas in the case of moderate, we can use exponential times, and for all kind of stresses, we can use this particular kind of universal or sine hyperbola kind of quantity equation. Normally, this equation is used in the case when we are doing a kind of creep test. Okay, so the flow stress or the stresses obtained in the creep test can be used in the particular kind of quantity equation. But in the case of the hot deformation, when we are going to develop any quantity equation, we have to use all three equations, because to calculate this particular parameter which is known as alpha, we are in need of both the equations. So how we can calculate the alpha, we will see in the further slides. Okay, so what is the use of this particular constitutive equation? Means what we will get after developing this constitutive equation. So here, with the help of this n and with the help of this q, n is stress exponent and q is known as the activation energy, and these two parameters are also helpful to predict the deformation mechanism which was dominant during the deformation of the hot compression test. Okay, so with the help of the value of n as well as the q, we can tell lot of information about the material behavior. Further, what happened? For example, I have done a few tests on hot compression test. For example, I have done on 700 degree centigrade at 10 to power minus 3, 10 to power minus 2, 10 to power minus 1, and 10. Okay. So at limited processing parameters, I have done my experiment, and somehow I am in need the data. I am in need of a data on which I have not done. Experiment was not done. Okay. So I have done the experiment in between 700 to 1000 with the difference of 100 degree centigrade. It means 700, 800, 900, and 1000. Okay. So at random, if I am in need of data of flow stress or hot compression data at 850 degrees centigrade, so we can generate the data with the help of this constitutive equation. Now question is how? The question is how we can generate the data. Okay. So first of all, we have to establish the constitutive equation based on the data whatever we have from our processing matrix. Processing matrix means what conditions you have done your hot compression test. Okay. So we will do some mathematical analysis, and later on we'll simplify these all equations. We'll get some values of n dash, some values of beta. With the help of n dash and beta, we can calculate this value of alpha, and with the help of this particular sine hyperbolic equation, we can have the value of n as well as the value of q. So by getting these all the values, we can re-put those values here in this equation and develop a standard equation. In that standard equation, when we put any temperature or strain rate, we can get the value of flow stress. Okay, so in this way we can generate the data within the deformation window for any particular set of conditions where we have not performed any compression test. So two things we can obtain from the constitutive equation. One thing, deformation mechanism, information about the deformation mechanism with the help of n and q. The other thing, we can regenerate the data for which we have not done the experiment. Okay. So here I'm just explaining how we can calculate the parameters. So here in this particular slide, you can see that this particular equation is useful when you have the value of the product of flow stress multiplied by the alpha, and that value must be less than 0.28. And when your value is greater than 1.2, then this exponential kind of expression will be used, but for all kind of the range, we can use this sine hyperbolic equation. So now question is, how we can calculate these all parameters like structural factor A, alpha value, which is known as the stress multiplier, n is stress exponent, and q is known as the activation energy. These are the four parameters for which we have to calculate. We have to do a little analysis to get these values. So to calculate this alpha, we must have the value of beta and n dash. Okay. So how we can get the value of beta and dash? So n dash we can calculate from here, but just by simplifying this particular equation. And beta value we can get from this equation just by simplification of this equation. Okay. So now talking how we can do this NDAS. So NDAS can be generated just with the help of this ln in differentiation of this ln strain rate versus ln flow stress value. Okay. So with the help of this we can get the value of NDAS. And similarly, we can get the value of beta when we plot the data, our data in between ln strain rate to flow stress. With this sine hyperbolic constant equation, we can generate the value of n as well as the value of q. Okay. So when we plot our data in the terms of ln strain rate versus ln sine hyperbola alpha sigma, then we can get the value of n. But it is to be noted that at this condition temperature must be constant. But in the case of the next one, when you are calculating this value of q and nr, that strain rate must be constant and you have to plot your data in this particular term. Okay. So with this we can have the value of all the data, and by putting value of all the data in our equation, we can generate our standard equation to recalculate or to generate any data which is not performed during the simulation. Okay, so this was all about the constant equation and processing map. Okay. This is all about the processing map and the constant equation, what we can generate, we can develop after the thermomechanical simulation in the case of the hot deformation. Okay. So now I am going to consider a particular material that is zirconium-1 niobium, and the as-entry condition of zirconium-1 niobium was the excluded beta range. Before proceeding, to proceed in the next slide, I just want to inform you that few of us are familiar with the zirconium-niobium alloy, but hopefully a lot of are not aware with the zirconium and niobium alloy. So let me explain a little bit about this zirconium and niobium alloy, that it is almost similar to the titanium-64, means titanium-6-aluminum-4 vanadium. Because why I am introducing titanium here? Because titanium-64 means Ti6-aluminum-4 vanadium is most popular and most versatile kind of alloy, and used in many applications in case of aerospace, in case of automobile, in case of dentistry. This titanium is very well applied. Okay. So here in this case of zirconium-niobium, it is almost similar to the titanium-64, and now I am telling some special features of this particular alloy. This alloy is known as two-phase alloy. What is two-phase alloy? Means at a certain temperature range, it has alpha phase kind of a structure. And what is alpha phase kind of a structure? Alpha phase kind of a structure is a structure which has HCP kind of crystal structure. Means alpha phase has HCP, and another phase it has beta phase which has BCC kind of structure. But at a certain range of temperature, that is around 800 to 900 degrees centigrade, it has a combination of both the phases, that is known as two-phase domain. And this two-phase domain is nothing, it's a combination of alpha plus beta phase. Okay, means in the range of 800 to 900 degrees centigrade, you will find there is both the crystal structure HCP as well as BCC in this particular temperature domain for this particular alloy. So here you can see one picture. It is a true strain diagram at a strain rate of 10 to power minus 2 for different temperatures. Okay, so here this left side figure is at constant strain rate, that is 10 to power minus 2, and right side middle picture you can say it is on constant temperature for various strain rates. Similarly, constant temperature at various strain rates. Okay. So these dotted lines are nothing, it is also the value of flow stress data, but it is adiabatically corrected. I am not going into the detail of what is adiabatic correction, okay, because we are lacking with the time and lot of information I have. So here you can see 815, 850 and 885. I have told you that this particular alloy has two-phase domain in between 800 to around 900 degrees centigrade. Means in this particular domain, this particular alloy has STP as well as BCC structure. Means alpha phase is there and beta phase is also available. Okay. So here I have made some partition that okay, this is beta phase temperature where I have done deformation, and this is alpha plus beta phase where I have done deformation, and this is the alpha phase deformation. Okay. So I am focusing only on these three temperatures which is lie in the domain of two-phase region. Okay. Now question is why? Why I am considering this two-phase domain? I am just considering this two-phase domain because at industry shop floor normally this alloy is processed in this particular domain where two-phase exists, because we have to control the microstructure as well as the mechanical properties. Okay, so with the help of this processing parameter we can control the proportion of alpha phase as well as the beta phase. So that's why I am focusing on this particular temperature range which is lie in the two-phase domain. So it is well written, alpha phase, two-phase and single beta phase. So what I am going to do, I am going to establish a particular quantity equation. Please listen carefully because it's a very kind of unique discussion. So here I am going to establish a quantity equation, and then the parameters of the established quantity equation will be further used in some FEM simulation to predict the RAM force, which will be further used in the shop floor at NFC Hyderabad. Correct? So here what I am going to do, I am just going to develop a quantity equation. I am just going to develop a quantity equation which is covering whole the temperature range. Means I am not bothering about the phases. Okay, and one I am developing only with the data of two-phase region where only alpha phase and beta phase exist. Why I am doing so? I am doing so because every phase has its own nature of deformation. Okay, alpha phase is a kind of hard phase, beta phase is a kind of soft phase. Okay, so if we cover all the phases in a single quantity equation, then we cannot able to understand that which one phase is dominating during the deformation or which one phase is playing a main role during the deformation. So that's why I'm going to consider only two things. One is the whole parameter, the other one is only the two-phase region. Okay. So here I am just giving the value of the parameters which what I have calculated for this development of constant equation. So alpha is here, n is here, s is here, q is here, ln a is here. So mode 1 is nothing. Mode 1 is a parameter developed from the data which was not bothered about the phases. Okay, means all deformation parameters, all deformation temperature I have taken in a single range and termed it as a mode 1. In case of mode 2, individually I have developed the parameters for alpha phase, means for this particular region, two phase means for this particular region, and beta phase for this particular region. Okay. So now I have done this calculation, put all the parameters back into the equation and calculated the ln z value. So this regression analysis I have checked whether our calculation is okay or not. So you will see and appreciate that when you are considering all temperature in single range, then your R square value is around 0.96. But when you are considering a particular range of phase, particular phase you are considering, then you will see that your R square value is approximately 1. Okay, and same way if you talk about this two-phase, means if we are developing our concentric equation, in short, I just want to conclude here. If we developing our concentric equation in phase-wise term, so we are getting R square value almost equal to 1. Okay, this shows that if you are covering all the temperature, means all the phases in a single domain, so it will not give you the fruitful results as compared to the single phases. Okay. So now, these previous slide equations means whatever Q we have, whatever A we have. Okay. So those information now I am going to use to simulate extrusion experiment with the help of one FEM simulation. The software used this particular simulation is known as HyperExtrude software, and the licensed version of this particular software is available with Nuclear Fuel Complex, Hyderabad. Okay, so this work was done over there. So we have we have modeled this particular tube and applied some boundary conditions. Okay. So the main point which I want to convey here, that during this simulation, this software requires the material property. Okay, and material property is nothing, means the behavior of the material. Okay, so what we have done, we have given the material behavior or the material property in 2 or 3 ways. The first way is we have given the whole data of stress and strain as per the processing condition, which is known as the lookup table. Sorry. So, as in lookup table, I have fitted all the data into the software. Another one method by which I have given the material's behavior to the software is known as the parameters of the constant equation. Okay. So here finally what we get, we obtain the ram force versus ram displacement data, and here you will see and appreciate that these 3 curves are almost similar. Now question is, what are these 3 curves? Okay, so this red curve shows the DS data. DS data is the data of shop floor which is captured during the extrusion experiment when they are extruding any particular tube. Okay, and this LUT is the lookup table data, means when I have given the information of material behavior with the help of lookup table, then this green curve shows the result of ram force in the terms of ram displacement, and this blue line is the data of 2-phase mode, means the parameter of the constant equation which is developed only for the 2-phase region. Okay, so when those parameters were given as a material property to the software, then we obtain this blue curve which represents the ram force versus ram displacement. Okay, and this yellow line is the mode 1. Mode 1 is, you know well, mode 1 is the constant equation when we have covered the entire range of temperature, deformation temperature. Means we have not segregated our phases. We have covered all the phases in a single domain and developed the constant equation, and the parameters of those developed constant equation I have given to the software. Then this yellow curve we get in the terms of result. Okay, so finally it is completely understood when we are considering the entire deformation range in a single domain. So we are very much away from the real data. Real data is DS data, experimental data at the shop floor. We are very much away. But when we are putting the lookup table means the raw data which we obtained from the thermomechanical simulation, we directly fed into this DS. Okay, then we are very much close to DS data. And similarly, when we have given the information in the terms of constant equation parameters which is developed only in the range of mode 2 or only for the 2-phase region, that also very much close to the DS data. Okay, so this means the twofold information we can get from here, that one, that physical simulation data can be processed in many ways, and those many ways will further extend to some other simulation and modeling purpose. Okay, as you have seen here that I have done a compression test. I have taken the data of those compression tests here. Okay, and reshaped the data in form of the constitution or in form of the lookup table, and then feed those information in some FEM simulation software to simulate a extrusion kind of experiment. I think it is clear. So here you can see that what kind of error we have in between. Okay, so it is appreciable that it is a single digit error, or almost it is around 3%, -4%, 2%, 2%, 1%, or 1%. But when we have this entire temperature range in a single data, then a huge difference in peak RAM prediction as well as steady state RAM prediction. So actually I have a lot of information here, but the time is actually 12. So okay, just taking 10 minutes more. Now I'm going to show you another unique kind of work with the help of this thermomechanical simulator, because in the case of the thermomechanical simulator you are using 10 mm diameter and 15 mm height sample. So you can guess, you can assume what will be the size of the deformed sample. Okay, so very small size of the deformed sample at the end, and from that deformed sample it is very much difficult. It is very much difficult to make the tensile sample. Even miniaturized tensile sample is very much difficult. We have tried but could not succeed. So what we have done? So we have made a small punch test to know the mechanical properties when we have the deformed sample. So here we are again considering zirconium 1 niobium alloy, but the as received condition is a little different. That is the phase followed by anneal in single alpha phase. Deformation range is 650 to 1050 degree centigrade with some interval of the temperature. 10 to power minus 2 to 10 is the strain rate, means 10 to power 2 per second, 10 to power minus 1 per second, 1 per second, and 10 per second was the strain rate. We have controlled the cooling rate as a 1 degree per second within the Gleason system and known as flow cooling, okay, or control cooling, correct? So with the data which we obtained from this thermomechanical simulator, we have developed this kind of processing map for this particular alloy. So here you can see the data is from 650 to 1050, and as I told you in previous slide, around 800 to 900, around little I think 10 to 20 degree plus minus is there. Around 800 to 900 there is a domain which is known as two-phase domain, and in two-phase domain there is a mixture of alpha phase and beta phase. A mixture of alpha phase and beta phase means a mixture of STP crystal structure and BCC crystal structure. Okay, so I am totally having my focus in the two-phase domain. Okay, so here on the right side you can see some flow curve is there. So from flow curve I have chosen some specific conditions where I have seen some distinguished features in the flow curve. So here I have taken only two conditions, one is 10 to power minus 2 and one strain rate for a particular temperature zone. Okay. Further, what we have done, from the deformed sample I have taken a disc, very small disc, and it was around 0.26 micron. Okay. So that kind of disc we have prepared and conducted the small punch test. And small punch test, some of you are maybe familiar and some of you know. Small punch test is nothing. It's just like when one disc is pushing with the help of a steel bar, and that steel ball is pushed by a plunger. So that type kind of sheet forming kind of experiment is this. This is known as small punch test. And it is also done at one of the department of BARC. It is post irrigation department. Dr. Kulkarni was there, who helped a lot to perform this particular experiment. Okay, so with that experiment, we have got such kind of the results, means yield load and maximum load, and I have plotted those all the values. Okay, so here you can see this particular two columns are the as received column. Okay, means what is the initial condition, initial value of our material in the terms of yield load, and what is the value when you have processed your sample at 815 degree with help of 815 degree and 10 to power minus 2 strain rate. Means first of all you have compressed your sample. Okay, after compression you got your deformed sample. So from deformed sample you have prepared the SPT sample and done the SPT test. So this value of yield strength you obtained when you have the sample which was deformed at 815 degree centigrade and 10 to power minus 2 strain rate. But when you deformed your sample at 815 and 1 strain rate, then from that sample you obtain your yield strength value, yield load value is this much, around 74 something. Okay, so this is this all bars are almost clear with all that this is 850 and this particular is 10 to power minus 2 strain rate and it is 1 strain rate, and again it is 85 the temperature centigrade and it is for 10 to power minus 2 and it is for 1. And similarly it is the maximum load of those samples or the samples which were deformed at corresponding different processing conditions. Okay. So now question is, okay, we are getting this much value here. So what happens microstructurally within the sample? Why such kind of huge value in the terms of yield load is coming? Okay. So here a rigorous microstructural analysis was done. So these all are the same samples, same images. Okay. So with the same images we can understand this same image belongs to 815 degree 10 to power minus 2 sample. This is 815 degree 1 strain rate sample. It is 1050 10 to power minus 2, 850 1 strain rate, 885 10 to power minus 2, and it is again 885 at 1 strain rate. So these are the features of cell. Here you can see these all black lines are these black domains are known as the alpha phase and bright lines are known as beta phase boundaries. Okay. So as you are increasing towards the beta phase, which is starts from 900 degree centigrade, your beta phase boundaries are increasing and reducing the domain of alpha phase. Okay. So some quantitative analysis of volume fraction of alpha phase and beta phase, okay, is done and shown here. Then we can say that at 815 alpha phase is 73% and gradually as you are increasing towards the temperature and approaching towards the beta phase, your alpha phase fraction is reducing. Okay, in all the cases. Okay, but transform beta phase is increasing. Transform beta, it means alpha plates. Okay, so if we measure the width of these alpha plates or beta plates, then we can see that it is little bit increasing as we are moving towards the beta phase. Okay. So some rigorous analysis is done on this microstructure analysis, and here you can see number fraction of high angle grain boundaries. So some EBSD analysis, some EBSD measurement was done on selected samples, and from EBSD measurement I have plotted the high angle grain boundary fraction for those all samples. Okay, so some information we have calculated from here. Later on, grain orientation instead we have developed from the measurement of EBSD. Okay, especially on specific conditions where we have done the SPT samples, and number fraction of GUF less than 1, it means the samples or the area where we can understand, okay, GUF is less than 1, it means rectified fraction are there. Okay, GUF greater than 2.5 is a kind of deformation kind of behavior, or you can say that microstructure or the grains phased only the deformation, not any kind of recrystallization or recovery is there. And in the right side figure, you can see average grain size. Okay, so its specific conditions, we have plotted the average grain size data. And finally, we got that combined effect of high dislocation density and the final size of alpha late at high yield is the logic or is the cause of high yield value at that particular condition, which was 815 degree and 1 strain rate. Okay, so I'm stopping my talk over here and we'll open the session for this question answer because a lot of work is there and some of you is interested to know more about, so you can Google or you can visit my Google Scholar. You will find a lot of work related to the zirconium hot deformation and focusing on this particular two-phase resin. Okay, so thank you for listening me, and the session is open for question answer.
Thank you, sir, for such enlightenment session on metal forming process and hot compression process. So, as you said, now this session is open for question answer round, and we have some hand raised. So I'm unmuting one by one. Mr. Mahendra, please ask your question.
Hello, Mahendra. Yeah, please go ahead with your question.
It's a very nice session, sir. Actually, I got more information from you. My research work is also related to hot compression, hot deformation behavior.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
I have a few questions, sir.
Yeah.
So, first one is how to differentiate the DRX grains and DRV grains in an optical micrograph.
Okay, so it is very very good question. For optical, you can take a feel of DRX. Okay, when you are not feeling any kind of stretch in the grain. Okay, so you can consider those grains are DRX. Moreover, the detailed information you can avail from the EBSD scan. Okay, from the EBSD measurement, you can define the DRX grain very very efficient way. Okay, so I will recommend that EBSD measurement is highly required to segregate your DRX as well as DRV. Because I have stopped my talk at this particular location, and further slides are very much informative slides. Whatever you have the question. Okay. So in that further slides, I have just the second slide is on the screen, I think. So if you see that these are some EBSD measurements, and from those measurements, I have segregated this particular alpha phase or beta phase or kind of DRX. Okay, so here on this particular right side black picture, you can understand these are the alpha phase and very recrystallized in mode. Okay, and whereas in the lower below picture, right side lower picture, you can see plate-like features are there. So it is a kind of transformed plate. Okay, so with the help of this EBSD measurement, we can do such kind of analysis. Okay. I hope I could able to answer your question.
Yeah. One more question I have, sir.
Yeah, please.
From the flow stress curves, can we know that the DRX and DRV are taking place during a hot deformation?
From the flow stress and strain curve, we can predict, but not confirm. Okay, confirm we can only when we have the validated microstructure analysis. Okay, so a lot of literature is available that if you are having the peak and the X point and then flow curve is after strain hardening, your flow curve is decreasing or flow kind of softening is there. So we normally use that, okay, DRX may be happen in the deformed microstructure. But along with this softening, along with this DRX, sometimes what happens, some kind of instability may also exist. Okay. So for this, you can see some published paper. You will be very much clear that how we can get any idea from the flow stress and flow strain curve. Okay, because normally in the case of the hot deformation, we have three kinds of the flow behavior. One is known as the strain hardening, another one is known as the steady state, and the third one is known as flow softening. Okay.
Yeah.
So steady state normally predict about the DRV, but when you have the flow softening, means when your curve starts decreasing when after the peak is faced, then you can assume okay DRX may be existing in the deformed microstructure, but it is not sure that only DRX is existing. Sometimes it may happen that some kind of instability like shear bend formation, flow instability, void formation, wedge cracking, these kind of instable features may exist where your flow space is representing this decline or reducing in nature.
Okay. One more last question, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. We are developing processing map at 50% of deformation, right, sir? So why is it so?
It's an actual 50% deformation. Yeah, very good.
Why don't we do for 30% or 40%?
Okay, very good question. And same question I have asked to some expert, I think 6 or 7 years back.
Okay.
When you will see that when you are moving ahead after 50% of deformation, that is 0.69 through strain.
Yeah,
okay, your flow curves almost in steady state nature. Okay, so if you are deforming more about this 50% of deformation, so usually material behaves similar kind of nature. So thus people are normally deforming up to 50%. Because what are the change may exist, they will exist up to 50%. In rare cases, people are deforming up to 80% or 90%. Very few studies are there, and they are specifically done just because of some high demand of those particular conditions. Okay, because I have gone through one paper of Vanjara et al. In the material of titanium, they have deformed more than 80%. Okay. So normally we are using up to 50% because all the things are established up to 50%. And after 50%, flow space is almost in steady state condition.
Okay. Thank you, sir. It's a very informative lecture, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you require any further information, you can drop me a mail.
Yeah, sure, sir. I'll keep in touch with you, sir.
Yeah, okay then. Thank you.
Now I'm unmuting Dr. P. Prabhakar Rao.
Good afternoon, sir. Kuldeep sir, it's a very nice presentation and a nice work during your, I think, is research work.
Yeah, thank you.
And I had a doubt about, sir, whenever suppose we are using extrusion process or any forging operation, now generally if it is a forging, it is at room temperature in atmospheric open condition we are trying to do. Then this Gleeble, what we are using, that is it they considering these heat losses during the forging operation?
In Gleeble, you can control atmosphere also.
Okay.
And heat loss you can consider or you can program when you are going to start a particular operation. Okay. It's a very versatile. This Gleeble system has a very versatile software. In that particular software, you can plan your experiment as you want.
Okay.
Okay. So if you are talking about heat loss, if you are talking about the controlled heating, controlled cooling, or multiple heating also.
Okay.
That can be performed with the help of this versatile machine. And nowadays, I'm happy to share that in India, I think more than 17 or 18 machines are established.
Oh, good.
Though it is very costly, it is around 17 crores something.
Oh.
And one deformation of a single experiment is cost around 10,000 something.
Yeah.
But still a lot of facilities we have, and a lot of IITs have this particular machine along with the Tata Steel, SAIL, NML Jamshedpur, and few other industries are also there who have procured this particular machine.
Yeah, another small doubt about. Now the diameter is very restricted, that is 20 mm maximum, and L by D ratio it is around 1.2 to 1.5.
No,
okay, then
actually this diameter, sorry to interrupt you, this 20 mm diameter is maximum capacity of this thermomechanical simulator for all kind of experiments. Okay. And this L by D ratio, what I have told you, that is only for the compression test. In case of compression test, if you are having the dia of 10 mm cylindrical sample, then your height must be in between 12 mm to 15 mm. Otherwise, bulging kind of problem will exist in the deformation.
Okay. Okay. But cutting to that small sizes may be somewhat difficult task.
No. Nowadays it is not difficult task. Nowadays it is not difficult task. Nowadays we have a wire cut EDM machine.
Yeah.
Very beautiful samples we can cut.
Okay.
Though it is a monetary matter, but difficulty is not there.
Okay.
It must be the zirconium, which is very difficult to handle in the terms of microstructural characterization as well as cutting too.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome.
Now I am unmuting Mr. Sandeep.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Very good afternoon, Sandeep.
This is Sandeep from Business Planning, Hyderabad.
Yeah, please.
Sir, my question is, sir, how to identify the dynamic recirculation and dynamic recovery happening in the material temperature by seeing the flow stress curve? First question. And if we cannot be able to tell it completely through the flow stress curve, by seeing the microstructure also, can we tell it or not?
So first of all, I am focusing your first question. Please repeat it. How we can consider or how can we measure that DRX and DRV, right?
Yes, sir. How can we tell that DRX and DRV is happening through the flow stress curve?
So through the flow stress curve. Okay. So with the help of flow stress curve, only we can predict. We can assume. Okay. We cannot 100% sure whether the DRX or DRV will be there. We can predict. We can take some idea about the microstructural features from the flow stress curve. Not 100% sure. For 100% surety, we have to go for microstructural characterization.
Sir, my material is steel, sir, automotive grade.
Something is there in your background. Yeah, please.
My material, I am working on automotive grade steel, sir. So the recirculation temperature of steel is around 700, as you know. But if I am going to test about the 700 degrees Celsius, the flow, whatever flow curve we are getting, that is completely showing the softening, sir. This flow softening region is low.
Okay.
So, and I cannot able to observe any strain hardening region. For that, if I want to go for any constitutive modeling, can you suggest me any constitutive model for which I would like to see?
In flow curves, you are getting all hardening or all softening?
Softening, sir, softening.
All softening?
Yes, sir, softening. Above 600.
I think if you don't mind, you can drop me a mail by putting all those curves so that I can see and I can suggest you more about the...
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay, last question, sir.
Yeah,
do GLA University have this Gleeville machine, sir?
No, GLA University don't have Gleeville machine. In private organization, if you talk, I don't know whether PSG is a private university or not. PSG is there other than IITs. PSG is there where the Gleeville is there. Otherwise, in some of IITs, Gleeville is there, or otherwise Tata Steel, SAIL, NML Jamshedpur, Gleeville is there. If you have any kind of work related to Gleeville, you can contact me. I'll help you.
Thank you.
And today evening speaker is from DSI, from the Gleeville only. So I would request to be there. They will also be very much informative. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I'm unmuting Mr. Bhomik.
Next question.
I think there is some technical issue.
Yeah. Hello.
Fine.
Yeah, Bhomik, please go ahead.
Kuldeep sir, your lecture was very good and lot of information was there pertaining to the development of the processing map. And I have few questions. How you find the sine hyperbolic curve, sir? Hello.
Yes.
How you find sine hyperbola? This equation was there in the constitutive equation, the third one. There you have mentioned about the sine hyperbola. So in that sine hyperbola of alpha and your flow stress. So how you plot that one?
Actually, your question is not clear to me. Can you please repeat in some other words?
Generally, you need to find the Q value, the activation energy.
Correct.
So for finding this activation energy, you need to take the sine hyperbola alpha and sigma, and then 1 by t on the other side. You will take these two variables and then you find out. But how you will find this sine hyperbola alpha sigma?
Okay. So alpha sigma, if you have focused on my slide, so how we can get alpha, that I have explained. I think on your screen there is the written alpha is equal to beta by ns. Am I right?
Yeah. That is fine.
So beta we can get from the exponential equation, which is the constant equation part 2. Okay. And ns we have calculated from the first equation. Here on the screen you can see the extreme left is the first equation, middle is the second one, and hyperbola last right. Okay. So from first one I have calculated n dash, beta I have calculated from the middle one. By dividing these two values, we can get the value of alpha. Okay, which is known as the stress multiplier. Okay, when you will multiply the value of alpha into the flow space, then you will have the value of alpha sigma. Am I right?
Okay.
Is this your question answer?
Yeah. Fine.
Okay.
So another question I am having, while developing this processing map, you have mentioned that during the experiment you have used the thermocouple to measure the temperature of the specimen, isn't it? So have you done the adiabatic temperature correction?
I have done.
And how far it is?
In one flow space curve, you have seen one dotted curve were there. Okay, so those dotted lines are adiabatically corrected flow space, and I have also told that I am not going into the detail of adiabatic correction, but we have done all adiabatic corrections.
Okay, how far is it really necessary to go for adiabatic temperature corrections? Because in some of the hot compression tests, the size of the sample is very, very small. So at that time, creating the thermocouple inside the sample will be very difficult.
Okay.
So
No. It is not difficult. Actually, with the Gleeple, there is a spot welding machine. With the help of a spot welding, within a fraction of second, you can weld your sample. Okay. But in the case of zirconium, welding at higher temperature, welding for higher temperature deformation is not successful.
Okay.
So what we have done, we have made the holes in the sample, and the hole was around 0.9 mm. 0.9 mm dia hole for 2 mm depth we have done, and with the help of steel pin we have inserted these thermocouples. Okay, and there is nothing with this thermocouple to adiabatic temperature rise. Okay, adiabatic temperature rise is just because of high deformation. High deformation means high strain rate deformation, because high strain rate deformation does not provide you a sufficient time to release the heat. Okay, so that heat will be there in the sample, and if heat is there in the sample, so definitely your sample will be much softer than the previous one. Okay, if material is softer, then definitely your slave stress will come down. Okay, this is the logic behind the adiabatic temperature rise. So that's why in flow stress data we always try to correct it with the help of adiabatic temperature correction.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more last question I am having. With respect to the two zones in your processing map, one is a stable zone and another is a unstable zone.
Correct.
So basically when we try to, you have mentioned about the constitutive equation. This constitutive equation is developed for complete both these two zones, or it can be restricted only to a stable zone or only to the unstable zone?
Okay. Actually, there is no relationship between the stable zone and unstable zone with Constantine equation. Okay, because Constantine equation is used for regenerating the data or to telling you about the stress exponent value or Q value, which help you to define the deformation behavior little bit. Okay, what kind of slide is there means. Slide is there or the slide is there. Okay, what kind of deformation mechanism is there. So there is no relation in between stable domain and unstable domain with the constant equation. So both are totally different domains.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sir, we have two more hand raised. So is it possible to take the questions or?
Two questions we can consider.
Okay, sure. So I am unmuting Mr. Surendra Kumar. Mr. Surendra, you can ask your question.
Yes, ma'am. My question is that why when standard increases material property like strength, yield strength, these are the increases. Fungibility of the material when standard increases is decreases. In a high energy rate forming, material fungibility also increases. Why?
Can you repeat your question, because somehow your question is a little bit away from the work whatever I have shown here.
Maybe.
Yeah, you please repeat. Hopefully I could be able to answer your question.
Low standard fungibility decreases when standard increases. In high energy rate forming, fungibility increases like electromagnetic farming, explosive farming.
But high energy rate is there, But high energy rate is there,
Why? I don't know why.
If you are imposing energy in a bulk amount at a sudden, so fungibility will definitely be increased.
When low standard slowly increases. Standard increases. Yield strength and strength, these property are increases, but the fungibility strength is decreases. Why? It depends on material to material. Under the
material to material behavior is exactly right answer, because every material has its own behavior. Okay. If we compare titanium to aluminum, so definitely totally different behavior you will find.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the case of this kind of deformation, this kind of metal forming, and another kind of metal forming for which you are talking about high energy rate deformation. Okay. That is kind of non-conventional metal forming process.
Yeah.
Okay. So behavior is almost totally different.
Yeah.
Correct?
Sir, simple tensile test. Under the 10 power, out of the 10 power 3, strain rate increases. Then strain is increases. Below the 10 power 3 strain rate, strain is decreases. Other properties also increases, but strain decreases. मतलब fungibility is decreases.
So yes, yeah, okay. Fungibility is decreasing, fine. What material you are dealing with? Let me know first.
Mostly, I found some literature, aluminum and some alloy, and these are the some trend like. But I have not found some reason why this is a.
So after this lecture, you can call me on my personal number. I can discuss on this, or we can have a Zoom meeting by sharing the screen, where you can show me the results on which you are having this all doubts.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Because a lot of participants are there waiting for their poll questions,
yes,
etc.
So I'm taking the last question of the session, Mr. Vinayak.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So my question is, you showed some EBSD results
Yes.
and you stressed upon EBSD characterization for the samples that you are doing, like hot deformation and all. So I would like to know, you can reiterate, why did you stress upon EBSD results, and what is that I'm looking in the EBSD results, especially,
Yeah, especially for?
hot deformation samples.
Okay, in the case of hot deformation, optical characterization will not give you a sufficient information. You can feel it only.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to do some quantitative analysis, okay, so
Yeah.
definitely you have to go for EBSD measurement.
Yeah.
So from that measurement, you can do lot of analysis.
Yeah. What is that? Actually, what were you looking for?
Yeah. So if we want to know about the recapitalization fraction, about the high angle grain boundaries, about the grain size, so those information you can do in a click of your mouse. Okay. So I think EBSD is a more versatile measurement from where you can do a quantitative analysis of your microspectral characterization.
Yes, sir. That high angle, low angle, what information it was giving, sir? That distribution?
So it is well written. I think if you see or if you read some published paper or there's some textbook related with this hot deformation, you will find that high angle grain boundary is greater than 15 degree. Because it is a relation in between this the grain in between the grains. Okay, and there are also two parameters by which we can measure the high angle grain boundary and low angle grain boundary. Okay, so if you work on the software, normally I have done on this OIM software. So there is a lot of information is given about the high angle grain boundary and low angle grain boundary, as well as information about how you can consider and whether you want to average inside the grain or average outside the grain also. So lot of things can be done and lot of information can be pegged from the software one.
Yes, sir. My second question is, now suppose if I have cut the sample by EDM, and if I want to use the EDM cut sample for microstructural observation, is it okay?
Okay, yeah, it's a very important question because when you are doing hot compression test with the help of this Weevil simulator, okay, so your main domain is the middle of the sample.
Okay.
So you must be very much careful while you are cutting the sample bilaterally.
Yeah.
So EDM will be a very suitable machine. EDM cutting, wire cutting will be a very suitable machine because it will not waste your deformed portion.
Yeah.
So EDM wire cut is a suitable or fine machine by which you can cut your deformed sample. Otherwise, if you are looking for this other wheel cutters which is provided by the Wheeler or other companies having the width of 0.5 mm, so that will give you the loss of your deformed portion. So you will not get the correct information about the deformation.
Okay. So I can take this point as, if I want to do even microstructural observation, EDM cut, a wire cut surface can be considered for microstructural observation. The sample preparation data.
EDM wire cut surface is just to make two pieces of your sample.
Yeah. But
later on you have to prepare your sample for microstructural characterization.
Yeah. So it will not damage the microstructure. So I can take it further.
Yeah. You go ahead with that.
Okay. And last question, the third. Now, if we are from private engineering colleges, so high-end characterization facilities is very difficult for us to.
From where you are?
I am from Belgaum, Karnataka.
Okay.
So it's a private.
We can do that in collaborative manner. A lot of institutions are there who are also interested to do collaborative work. Okay. So you can drop me a mail what information or what characterization you want to do with your sample. I can help you.
Yeah, because I tried EBSD, sir. So it was difficult for me to get, because it takes 6 hours of scanning and all that stuff. So normal SEM, I can pay 500 rupees and get it done. But
no. Actually, it depends. What is the specification of your machine?
Okay.
SEM machine. And what is the specification of your EBSD equipment which is attached on the EBSD machine? SEM machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of machines are there. Some are equipped with the tungsten filament, some are equipped with the FEG.
Yes. Yes.
So that speed of this EBSD equipment depends how much time it will take.
Okay.
So that
But now,
will be, if it's an older machine like a Quanta, so it will
yeah.
take around 16 hours for a sample. So that sample can be scanned within 40 minutes with some other 3D kind of EBSD machine.
Okay. So one, yeah, addition to this, you told global one sample to be done, 10,000 rupees is the cost.
Actually, for industrial purpose, few agencies are charging 10,000 plus GST. For
Yeah.
academic institutions, they are charging 5,000 plus tax something.
Yes, okay. So same EBSD, what would be the possible cost, sir, for one sample?
Actually, for EBSD, every institution has its own charges.
Yeah. But
Okay.
on an average,
So I think you can talk me personally. You can talk me personally. I could be helpful for your EBSD characterization as well as for Griever deformation.
yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay, welcome. Be in touch. The motive of this kind of FDP is that kind of knowledge where the equipment facility is there and how we can do some kind of collaborative work with some agencies, some groups, some institutions. Okay. So now I'm stopping my talk here and coming back to my original work, which is a kind of launching the poll question, opening the mic, whatever Ankita is helping today. So poll question is on your screen. This poll question is of day 5, second session.